Totally
Yay!
seamless.
And we got our first sub
As
there too. Thanks, Harry.
Ew.
It still popped up.
It's
We
hilarious.
live? Did it work?
Yeah, we're live.
Oh my
oh,
God.
AJ, that's you.
it's me. Hello, coffee beans, and welcome to our coffee house, esports and coffee. We're happy you stopped by to grab a mug of your favorite beverage, grab a comfy chair, and stay a while. I'm one of your head baristas, AJ, assisting me with brewing our coffee tonight. We have Jackie Lamb, Sari Kaitlin, and Danielle Sarikis. So today, as you can see, we've got some friends with us today. So you've mayhaps you have stumbled upon one of our coffee house chats. This is where we invite more of our friends, more of our coffee beans to the conversation. So our topic for this evening is job hopping. How often is too often? How to know when it's your time to go and maybe pursue some other opportunities? How do you not feel trapped because of what you built? What if it fails when you leave? But before we start sipping on all of that tea for our topic tonight, I'm going to pass the mug over to Danielle to take care of some housekeeping.
Thank you, AJ. Remember, if you're not in our Discord, you should be, where you can find woodworking, pet picks, cookie debates, and Coach Karen's tips, all while focusing on our own growth and success. The ENC Discord, of course. It's always a party in our Discord. I almost had it. I feel like I'm looking at Sari waiting for me to like fumble the
You're
bag.
so good. You're doing so
Right.
good. Mm-hmm.
So you may have noticed we have a few more friends, like AJ said here today, than normal. So let's do some introductions. I'll start, and when I'm done, I'll throw it to another panelist, and then you guys do all the same thing until we're all gone through everybody. Does that sound good, guys?
I think so.
All right, here we go. Obviously, I'm Danielle Sarikis. I am formerly the head coach, not director of esports at Lawrence Technological University. I feel like I could say that now specifically for this. And now I am the director of esports at Florida Tech. And I will pass it to my good friend with a very high voice, Travis Yank.
I feel like I should do a high voice now. No. Hi, my name's Travis. I'm the director of esports competition at Syracuse. And normally I wouldn't give my full job history, but I think it's relevant to this the conversation. So I started at Ashland University as an assistant esports coach back in 2018. Then went to head esports coach for Texas A&M San Antonio, and then went to Wichita State University as their director of esports. And then as of about a month and a half ago, I'm now up here in Syracuse. I will pass it to, am I supposed to pass it to one of you guys or someone new?
Anyone you want, you pick.
Sari.
Oh, I'm Sari. Sorry for anybody whose phones just went off by me saying that. Um, so I am still the executive director of esports at Full Sail. I have been there for almost 18 years. So that is why I will be moderating tonight's panel, as I don't have much to contribute to the job hopping conversation. And then I'm excited to learn and navigate it. But I keep myself busy with side projects and have a good time. And, life is good and comfortable. And I am going to pass it to Micaiah.
Hi, my name is Micaiah. I am the esports specialist at Spectrum Industries, and my history in esports consists of I graduated last year, well, almost a year from now, with a degree in esports management from Shenandoah University. I've gotten various experiences in professional esports and collegiate esports. It's a long list, so I'll try to keep it short. Just working with companies like Esports Engine, the now redacted Washington Justice, and also with Events DC, which is just a government company who runs events in DC. So yeah, that's like a small sum up of my experience. I guess I will now pass it on to Annabelle. That's who I see.
Yeah. All right, cool. Hi everyone. I do know a couple people here, but I'm really excited to meet everyone else. My name is Annabelle. I'm most known for co-founding esports at UCF. So I've got Naito over there on my couch, but I also have experience working in esports full time. I worked at Evil Geniuses, and then ended up in mobile games, and now I'm a project manager in advertising technology. So wide variety of stuff. But yeah, very brief intro, and I will call on my wonderful friend Lindsay to go next.
Awesome. Hi, everybody. As Annabelle said, my name is Lindsay. I'm the Assistant Director of Esports and Partnerships at Harrisburg University, which I actually graduated from last May now. So it's coming up on a year, very similar to Micaiah. And I graduated from the Esports Management, Production, and Performance program. So I have an esports degree. And, my experience is a little short in the professional space. I've had a few internships from my time as a student, and then before that, I was a barista. So I fit right in here at Esports and Coffee, and I'm excited to continue the conversation. So I will throw it to Jackie.
Hi, I'm Jackie. I'm the current STEM esports TOSA, and TOSA means teacher on special assignment. So I currently work with K through 12 at the Minneapolis Public School District, and before that I was the assistant director and head coach for Minnesota State University Mankato. Before that I worked just a shit ton of random jobs that just doesn't matter. So AJ, gonna end it with you.
Yeah, I'll bring it home here. I am AJ. Currently, I am a course director at Full Sail University. Prior to that, I was the director of membership at good old NACE. Before that, I also was a head esports coach at Park University. Other jobs before that were not esports related, but in terms of kind of our topic tonight for job hopping, my job history does seem to be about 1.5 to 2 years at each point in time. And that was like after I had graduated, right? So like I was a lifeguard for like 5 years, but that was like every summer when I went home, like from after college and between summers and things like that. So once getting into like your adult career workforce, for me, ever since I've graduated, which may or may not be 10 plus years ago, it's been about 2-ish years, and then I've decided to pursue other opportunities. So that gives just kind of a little bit of background for me currently, and where we are at. I'll kick it back to Sari to kind of get us started.
Awesome. So as you can see, there's obviously something similar about all of our amazing and incredibly successful panelists that we have here today, in that they all have changed jobs for various reasons or various needs throughout their career, which might be leading the conversation as to our opinion on the subject. However, today's topic really kind of stemmed from, like a lot of our topics do, something posted on Twitter. So a couple months ago, there was something posted on Twitter that sparked a bit of a debate. And honestly, I'm kind of starting to think this is the only point of Twitter these days, is to spark a debate, but whatever. But this tweet was about changing jobs, and it was really focused on people shouldn't change jobs so often. That's the problem with esports, is that people are just changing jobs, and you got to pick a job and you got to stay in it. And that's how things get better. And even though I have not had a new job since before Cody was born, I completely still disagree with the sentiment. Just because I have stayed at my job this whole time doesn't mean that's because I think it's the right thing for everyone to do. But we found that to be a pretty grand and inaccurate statement. And so we wanted to address it in a show topic today. And the conversation being that this perspective that people sticking with one job so that everything can grow, I don't think is accurate. And as you guys all know, 3 of the 4 baristas have all started new jobs in the past year. So we thought it was really timely to have in this conversation. I'm excited to moderate. And we pulled together all of the friends that we know that have, been really successful in doing these pivots in whatever way they kind of seem to be. I think the topic of conversation is really important these days in 2 folds. Is, we really want to address, sometimes you leave a job because you're forced to. And sometimes you leave a job because you want to. And sometimes you leave a job that you were never expecting to leave, but a really good opportunity just came up. And all three of those avenues are okay. And we're going to address all three of those avenues here. But as always, what we, really focus on here is understanding your connection to what you need for your mental health and wellness and well-being. And a lot of times leaving a job is that. And so we would never want to encourage someone to stay in a situation that's not the right situation for them simply because they've been there for a long time. So we're going to kind of start here. Everyone here on this call, as we talked about, has made recent pivots or shift in their careers, whether entering new jobs, companies, even industries, as we've heard. We definitely have a mixed bag of everybody based on their experience. And so I think we have people who kind of chose their own pivot, people who had their pivots chosen for them, a lot due to layoffs, especially the last couple of years. So let's start with the latter. So who here that we have today has been laid off from a job or let go from a job unexpected? All right.
Not this career.
That's still a thing. Okay, so we've got Annabelle, Jackie, Micaiah, and Loaded Baked Potato, aka Danielle. Perfect nickname, by the way. So starting here in what we have of being laid off or how they've been laid off. What was that experience like? I guess start around the horn, whoever wants to go first. Like, what was the experience like? Did you know the layoffs might have been coming? Did you have an inkling that this might be happening? Was it a complete surprise? Who wants to start, or anybody want to chime in?
So I'll just randomly start because it's not esports related, and then everyone can get back on topic. So that way we just leave my outlier thing. So I got laid off. I was a patient advocate in the emergency room. I did it for 5 years. I worked in healthcare for 13 to 15. I'm not really sure. I think it was 15 years, which is like just as long as Sari almost working in there. But I didn't think I was going to leave healthcare. But anyway, I got laid off during COVID, like the peak into COVID. The hospital took out money from the government and then laid everybody off, and then later ended up in a lawsuit because they didn't pay their employees and laid people off. But that's another story for another day. And it actually happened for me at a perfect time in my life. And it's really weird to look back on it that way. My grandma had just passed away, and I knew that I didn't want to do the job anymore. And so I got laid off, and then I was able to like focus on myself and working out. Yeah, I worked out pre-esports, and kind of just like let that all stew and whatnot. And then my job, we were called back to work, and my job was eliminated. And I'll full circle why this matters in esports. My job was eliminated, and then I was pulled back, told about the esports job at Lawrence Tech, and I applied, and I could have took a severance from my job and not went back, a 5-week severance, but I was like, oh no, I need that. I only have 5 weeks of pay. Like I can't find a job. Well, I got hired with Lawrence Tech the same week I went back to work, and I only worked there for 5 weeks. So hindsight, it's really funny, but for me, it was a blessing. And I know that's not always really the case for being laid off. And we also have to look at the time period of getting paid super extra. So now back to esports. Sorry.
I guess I can go next. So for me, I guess in hindsight, it was a blessing, but when it first happened, it definitely was not a blessing. So for me, not gonna talk too much about the company I used to work for, but right out of college, I landed a job as a marketing coordinator for pretty much a startup esports gambling company. Yes, I know gambling ethics. I'm not getting into that right now, but So for me, it was awesome. I mean, I landed a job in esports straight out of college. Like I just never really expected to be there. Like I honestly had expected to work in traditional sports or traditional business, gain my skill sets, and then transfer back into esports. But I was lucky enough to land a job. Well, long story short, 3 months in, I was laid off, and it was very unfortunate. It was saddening. I thank my landlord a lot because I was actually living in Jersey at the time, and she pretty much was just like, "Don't worry about the rest of your rent or anything. Like, just go home and just figure things out." And that is one of the greatest things I could have ever asked for because I know there are a lot of landlords that would be very adamant on like you sign this contract, but yeah, it sucked. It honestly sucked. I didn't think that I would be in esports again. But yeah, I was just going and letting people know because I always try to keep people in contact and eventually I let an old man called Scott Dorn know that it was happening and he actually had brought up and he was like, "Hey, we actually I know you said that you just got laid off. We actually have a position that we think you'd be perfect for. Would you be interested in applying and everything like that?" And I was like, "Well, we're in an esports winter right now. I don't really have a lot of other options." So I went ahead, applied, went through the process, and eventually it led to me being hired. And now looking back in hindsight, I mean my job is just in every way that I could think of better. So for me, it was more of a thing of just, keeping in contact with people and eventually it just landed me to somewhere that where I'm now happier than I was before.
That's awesome. Annabelle, you want to tell us your journey?
I've been thinking how much what I should say and what's important. I also think that my layoff at the time, while it like really broke my heart, it was good for me. I was working at Evil Geniuses. I like converted from an intern to full time. Like I was living every collegiate student's dream, essentially. Moved all the way across the country, was working, and then things started to get really rocky in esports. And the one promise that we were always told is that no layoffs are coming. We were different. And then it just happened one day. I came into the office the night before. I got an invite with no invitee list. So I showed up. I wasn't sure what to expect. I was the only person in office besides the HR team, which was when I started to realize what was going on. So I went in and everybody else that was remote was on that call and we all got laid off together. And within 15 minutes, I was like out the door. So I literally packed all my stuff up and never went back. And it was like crazy because I was still processing it at the time. Um, but I think as much as it like really made me upset because I was like, I made it. I'm gonna be here forever. It was a good time to go because after that, things just kept getting worse and it kept getting harder, like in terms of the job market. And so, uh, looking back, even my parents are like, it was a good time, like for you to be let go. And yeah, it was a lot. Like, I just had to figure out what am I gonna do now? My parents were like, you could come home, like you can move in with us. Like, it's totally fine. We don't blame you at all. Like, they were so understanding because they knew and they kept reassuring me it had nothing to do with you and the quality of your work. And the company just wasn't gonna pay you anymore, and that's fine. Like, we know you'll get back on your feet. So yeah, that was my story. And I remember in making the tweet and everyone was like in shock that it had happened, especially because I was one of the people who really represented their brand at the time on social media. A lot of people knew me, and so yeah, it was really like heartwarming to receive so much support like from all the people when that happened because I was figuring things out. I had just moved out, like, and now I was on my own. So that was a very, very pivotal moment in my life looking back.
You had an interesting one because it was like it was a very public
It was a
layoff.
very public breakup.
Yeah. Like
Yeah.
it was all out there. I remember, sorry to make this uncomfortable. I remember when you got laid off. Like I
Yeah.
remember when there was the rounds of layoffs leading up to you getting laid off, and I remember continuing to check and make sure that you were there. And then I remember going back and I wasn't sure. And then you had posted it in like when they had like those circles or something like
Yeah.
that.
I had
And
no idea what to do because I was in so much shock. I was like,
and
hey guys, I don't know what to say, but this happened. My
yeah, like
circle just blew up with
I
support.
remember like Antor and I like talked like, hey, do you think she's still good? Like I remember that whole thing happening, and I have to imagine that puts an added element of weirdness when you don't get to be laid off and then go about your business. You have to tell everybody,
Yeah.
I don't work here anymore. That's
I would,
weird.
and some employees had no idea that I was let go too, because communication was like so segmented. I had people reaching out to me like, "Hey, like I would love to chat," and I was like, "I'm sorry, I don't work in marketing anymore. Like, I appreciate you. Think you're
Mm-hmm.
doing a great job, but
My
yeah."
favorite. Lindsay, did you say you had been laid off? No, because look at that face. Why would anybody lay Lindsay off? She's the best.
No, I think also just having a shorter career span right now, I'm still kind of in that first year after graduation, so I hope nobody's gonna lay me off in my
No, we're
first
gonna
year.
keep them from. They won't. We won't allow that. We won't let it happen.
Thank you.
Okay, so then we have the side of being laid off and like how your mind shifts and like that sudden pause that you have to take of like, oh my God. The other side does not necessarily make it much easier. There's still as much of a mental game and there's still as much of like a preparation and believe in yourself and the confidence boost and the overcoming insecurity and imposter syndrome and things like that on leaving a job on your own decision. So for those that have changed jobs because you needed to change jobs or you made the decision to leave jobs, how do you know when it is time to move on or how did you know when it was time to look? Or maybe in your situation you didn't look and you weren't looking, but an opportunity came to ahead and you really wanted to take it.
I can maybe start. Um, it's I just want to preface and say this conversation is really good. This topic's really good because I've kind of just been, going through this in my life, but I've never actually paused to like think about some of like why I do certain things. Um, but yeah, as to kind of your question as to maybe why or when's the right time, um, I think back to one of the first or one of the more important conversations I had with my first athletic director when I was an assistant coach. And I was working with Josh Buchanan at the time for about a year and a half. And, um, I wasn't necessarily looking for a new job, but, I knew I was doing good work there. And I just happened to have a conversation with him and he was just like, hey, you're young, you're a professional. And I was like, loyalty, this is such an amazing thing. I think as Annabelle touched on or someone did, like the idea that I should be very grateful. This is what a lot of people dream about. So why would I want to leave institution that took a shot on me? But my AD was like, you're young and you should, feel comfortable looking for opportunities if they fit what you're looking for, and I support you in that. And that kind of just stuck with me and kind of set my mindset for the next, but it's been like 6 years now. So since then, for me, it's just been um, focus on the quality of what's in front of you. Um, and then if an opportunity comes and it kind of just sticks with you and you're thinking about it, then it doesn't hurt to throw your hat in there. Worst case things don't work out, but if they do, then you can see where things go. So kind of answers your question there.
Yeah. No, it is. It's interesting because it's that like it's always hard, I think, from the leadership side. And all the props to Josh for the way he managed that because like a good leader, it's not a reflection. For a good leader, you're supposed to encourage your staff when they want to pursue new opportunities. It's not personal. They're not doing something to you. They're not mad at you. If you think it's about you, then look inside yourself and figure out what you did to your culture or your community or your environment that would make that person leave. But to be able to stand behind your employees and say, I support you and here's what we're going to do helps make that transition that much better. And the fact that you had that where you were clearly that at that age has set you up for the path of being comfortable making those leaps and those changes moving forward. And that's what impact a good leader can have on people.
I think for me, like, one of the reasons I moved is because I was taught that, you know, you went to school, you got a degree, then you stuck with a company because you moved up for so long, and then you would move up with your salary, and then you'd finally get to the point where you were comfortable and you would get the wage that you want. And I never had that with any of the jobs that I had worked at. So I hopped around to the next highest paying job that also had expanded, because I worked for a lot of lower paying jobs that were smaller companies that were very, like, they were like family owned businesses, and then it was a smaller but larger family owned business. And then finally, when I got the job at MSU, I just finished getting my master's, but I still, even in the esports world, I feel like we just don't have that level of income still at what I was told that I should be making. And so I still wanted to get that income that I thought, that I still think that I want and need. And now I'm needing to support my family. So that's why I looked for another job after so long with MSU. That's why I looked for another job, is because I knew I wasn't going to get the raise. I knew I wasn't going to get that next level there. So I needed to move. And I took that chance, and now I need to do it again. But we'll figure it out.
Okay, well, we haven't really talked about that, but do you want to talk about that? Why do you need to do it again?
Yeah. So my circumstance just a little different. So my position, it's called accessed, which I didn't know what that was. So I'm technically laid off, but I work through the end of my contract. So I still work until the end of the school year. They just don't renew my contract, and since I'm not tenured, they get rid of my position. And so there's a bunch of us that just, I got hired in August, and they were still hiring people as of like last month, and then they let them go. And so there's a bunch of us that are just kind of in limbo, like, what are we supposed to be doing? And the worst part is last Friday, they asked us to do a year in a glance of what we do for our job, so that next year they can figure out what they need to do. I'm like, but no one's going to be doing my job. You got rid of it. They're like, well, we know that, but someone still has to do your job. I'm like, no one's going to be doing my job. I guarantee it. Unless you want to keep me. So I did take a chance, and I'm still looking. I still want to stay, but I think it was a good choice.
I think so too. Because I mean, as the president of Jackie Lamb fan club, and just you're the love of my life. But something I've noticed about you is how good you are at building, like how good you are at like breaking down walls, breaking through silos, bringing people together, and the build process. And I think that you've found your next step after MSU that really tapped into that and just amplified it that much more, that even if you only got to do that for 8 months, I think that's still like you did everything at MSU, and then you were able to be like, oh, okay, I focus on this portion of this area, and you were really able to like amplify and elevate yourself in that, which I think is going to set you up right for wherever we're going to go next. I love you.
Thank you.
I kind of want to jump on something Jackie said, where, when you're looking at careers and you're looking at where to go next. I don't quote me on this, but I think I saw it on a social media post where it was like, if you stay at a company, you actually earn less than if you change careers every 2 years. Like, I don't know if it was 20% or what it was, but you earned 20% more if you left a job and found a new one every 2 years than if you stayed at a company until you retire, which I thought was so interesting, where it's like, we get told, don't change your career, it'll hurt you in the long run. But in reality, it doesn't.
I think that was an old school of thought. Like if you look at, not even my mom didn't really stay at careers. She has for a while now, but um, people were kind of like forced to make moves at this point in order to get the next level. Kind of like to Jackie's point, I fought for a lot of things at my former institution. I actually came in and they had told me before I started that I wasn't even going to stay there. And I was like, I've been working here for like 3 months. What are you talking about? And they're like, you will not. People don't retire or people don't, they either start their career here or retire from here. And you're starting your career and you're going to go on to do other things. And I was like, my whole life has been in Michigan. My whole family is in this circle of life. What are you talking about? And um, like to something that Sari said is, I didn't go looking. I was last summer. I'm not going to lie. I was looking. And then I paused because I was like, well, I need to finish this master's degree, which is something I never thought I'd do as a side note. Right. Um, and then life had other plans for me and I had to take a giant leap and move a long ways away. And I am as sad as I did not want to leave any of the kids. I think that's the hardest part. I wish I could take every one of them with me. I want them to graduate first, right? Because that's why they're there. I'll say that. But I wanted them to go with me and I wanted that same program and I wanted everything for that school. It's in a prime location. It's near the airport. It's all of the boxes you could possibly check. Minus a big school, Bilski, we know. But I just had to take the leap of faith. So
I'll add too also to like what Lindsay was saying, I think is a really good point. And there's other things that perpetuate that culture. So like you stay in an organization, right? I think every organization, well, no, because now people are doing the unlimited PTO, but like every year you're there, you earn more PTO. You hit a certain number of years and you get a mug or you get a email, a newsletter where they include your name because you hit a thing. Those are the carrots that companies put in place to keep you there, to keep you going and to keep you moving. They are also giving you a basic 3% cost of living or whatever it might be in your state every year that you're there, which means that you essentially make the exact same salary the entire time if you're only getting cost of living increases, because the cost of living increases is due to the fact that the cost of living has increased. It's amazing how that works out. And so it's that like having to understand that, like what Lindsay was saying is like, we've seen all the things where like it costs companies way more to hire someone new than to keep someone in a position. Yet the counterculture is they set all these things up to keep you there, with the exception of giving you that growth and that jump that you might need. So it's a really good point and it's true. And it's like kind of looking between the weeds and figuring out, oh, am I getting what I need? Like and honestly, it's like for yourself of like, what do you need from a job? Like sometimes you're, I don't know, a single mom that's doing the best that you can. And the stability and autonomy and comfort that you have of a place is a priority for you now. And that's okay. And sometimes it's I'm young in my career and I really need to keep moving forward. And so I'm going to jump and that's okay. And sometimes I've gotten to know myself and I think I'm better I'd really like to pursue, I don't know, teaching. And I've never done that before. And that's okay. And so it's like knowing who you are and what those things are is really how you navigate that weird dichotomy of the corporate world.
It's the darndest thing. That sounds so similar to maybe something that happened to me. Yeah, like long story short, like I graduated with my bachelor's in sociology. I graduated with the mindset of going to teach high school. And I took all of the FTCEs because I'm originally from Florida, even though I was in Kansas City for just a short time of my life. But I took those darn teaching certification. I'm not a good test taker, y'all. She did all right. It took some time. She passed them, not always on the first time. But I had a really difficult time even landing interviews to get a job to teach. And like I wanted to teach high school, but at that point in time, I was taking interviews to teach at middle school. Like any grade level at that point in time, I was trying to get into, and I just couldn't hack it because I didn't have like I just went to school and got my sociology degree, but I didn't have like I never spent any time in an internship working in a school or anything like that. So at that point in time, I sort of I don't want to say abandoned what I thought that I was going to do when I graduated, but I decided to go play in IT instead because I had a degree for that at the University of Florida. And during that point in time, I mean, I always loved video games, but that's kind of how I found I still loved higher education. I still loved education. Esports, collegiate esports started happening. I kind of went in that direction for a while. But I think I always knew and I always stuck within higher ed, even when I was just working in an IT department on a campus. I always stuck with higher ed because I always knew that somehow, some way, I wanted to be tied to education in some degree because I knew that I thought eventually I would be teaching. I didn't know how I was going to make it happen, but I always wanted to be closely tied to the education space. So mayhaps when I went to this little thing called Hall of Fame last year, and I went to Full Sail campus, and it was like going to Disney World. It's just like a magical, life-changing sort of experience that I had. And then the game business degree and I said, I might know a thing or two about mayhaps that sort of subject. So that's how this happened. And now it's like fantastic. I'm teaching something on a subject that I feel, pretty mostly knowledgeable about, right? So the job hopping thing, even though I've been out of school for 10 plus years at this point in time, past my degree, I found it. 10 years later, I'm finally teaching like what I thought I was going to do when I first graduated 10 plus years ago. So we just took the scenic route there, I think.
I think the scenic route is a good route to take. And I think it's awesome. And I'm glad that you're teaching and you found what you love.
Oh, it's so good. It's so fun.
And that's the only reason I love it. I swear. It's not for any other reasons. Okay, the interesting thing I think about changing jobs, and Danielle touched on this a little bit, of like the thing that might give you hesitation to leave if you are choosing to leave, but the thing that you're going to deal with if you're not necessarily choosing to leave is like that, like, where's my stuff concept, right? So like wherever we all are, when you're in a job, you know who to contact, you know how to get things, you know how to get things done, where a project goes, who your resources are, who you need to contact for these things, what the structure is, what the schedule is, what the day-to-day is, you can manage it. And then all of a sudden you don't know any of that. You don't know where anything is. You don't know where they keep the kitchen knives. You don't know if people bring their own coffee. Do they go out to lunch? Do they not go out to lunch? We bring in our lunch. We put it in the fridge. Do people eat other people's lunch in the fridge here? Or is my lunch safe in the fridge here? Do we even eat lunch? Do they work through lunch? Are they one of those people that do a speed walking session during lunch? I've had those. They're not fun. All sorts of things are different. You got to figure it out. You're figuring out your whole world all at the same time. So you could be coming from somewhere that might not have been the best fit for you, and leaving was the right thing. But then you start to doubt yourself when you left, because you're like, was leaving the right thing? Because I knew where everything was. I knew where all my stuff was. And now all of a sudden I don't know where anything is. And so how, in that concept, how do you work through that learning curve of a new job, of a new company, of a new structure, of a new atmosphere? How do you do that?
Sorry.
No. Your turn. Go.
Oh, okay. Okay. No, I just so as my job was with laying off, but I really I really wanted to talk about just my experience with coming onto Spectrum. So like when I came onto Spectrum, literally like during that training week, it was very intimidating because one, I was like esports specialist. I am like 3 months out of college and I'm freshly laid off. I don't think I'm a specialist at life or anything. So that was also scary. Then when you come into the job, or then when I come into the job, everyone's like, Micaiah, you're the future of esports at Spectrum. Like you're gonna be running these things, you're gonna be doing this stuff. And I'm like, I don't know how to do taxes. I don't like I this is a lot. This is a lot to put on a 22-year-old. But over time, I think there was two things that helped me adjust. And I mentioned it a little bit in a presentation I gave at Harrisburg, but one was I started telling myself that I deserve to be here. I don't give myself credit a lot, but just telling myself that I deserve to be here. I've earned this. I've earned the right to be here. And if all of these people see something in me, then I mean, I can argue with myself, but I can't argue with everybody else. So that was definitely the first part, but also just the second part of acknowledging that I am a 22-year-old. I mean, yes, they come in and they're expecting a lot of me, but I'm sure that no one at Spectrum is expecting me to make like record profits in my first year or like sell like nine figures and chairs and tables and stuff. I'm sure they'd love it, but I know that that's not their expectation. So I think it was also for me of understanding that like they want me because I'm young, I'm passionate, and even though I don't have as much experience as all of these other people, they're here to help me. They're here to help guide me and they're here to help grow me into the person that I don't even see for myself. So I think it was more of just me taking that pressure off of myself of like it's okay, like I'm in Phoenix right now, like we were putting chairs together, they put the chair together in like 8 minutes, it took me like 30 minutes, I was messing around with screws for like 30 minutes, and but it's okay because like Scott came up to me, he was like, Micaiah, like, you said you're not a handyman, like you're learning and you're gonna, like, it's fine. It's fine. And I think that that definitely helped me a lot. Just taking that pressure of like, I'm new and it's okay to be new. I'm not some CEO coming in to bring in and change the company. I'm just the esports specialist. So yeah.
You're awesome, Micaiah. I just want to
Yeah.
say that.
To jump in on
Thank you.
Makaya's, oh, sorry. To jump in on what Makaya was saying, I was at a leadership summit last week and we were talking about like recognition and how you like to be recognized. And it was like, how do you deal with the imposter syndrome where you're like, oh, I don't think I deserve this. I'm only XYZ. And the person came back with like, remove only from your vocabulary. You may only be 22, but you're doing amazing things. Oh, I'm only a college graduate. No, you graduated college. Like there's ways to take it and twist it where it's you remove that only word and it really kind of changes perspective and changes how you think of things.
So brilliant. I did a panel with Lindsay maybe 2 years ago, and I was blown away. And that we did the entire panel. And then it was like towards the end, and she's like, and I'm a student. I go, she is a student? Like, what the? How is this possible? I couldn't even believe it. I fell in love, and I've just been annoying her ever since. She's
I don't know who that girl you met was, but I'm glad she impressed you.
she impresses a lot of people all the time.
I want to add that one of the best takeaways I've had with like self-reflection is when you start to feel comfortable, it's okay to start looking for a new role. If you're, because sometimes you gotta, like, I was super comfortable in my not esports role, but prior role. And I looked back and I had a conversation when I was in my esports role and was like, I really am upset with myself for staying stagnant for all those years. And I feel like I could have switched and I feel like I could have been here sooner. And I feel like, and you look back and you're just like, why are you doing that? This is who got you. This, all of the things that you have done and all the things that you're doing get you to this very moment and this very point. And so I don't, we're our own worst enemies, right? Everything that I say up in my head is 10 times worse than anyone could possibly think or say about me or decide. So, like Micaiah said, if everyone in the room is telling you that you're amazing and doing amazing things, believe them. So thank you, Micaiah, for saying that, because that was helpful. I think you summed it up better than I think I was going to even say anything. So I am a big fan.
I want to give just a quick like two-part response. Number one, just about like the doubt. For me personally, like actually the most I experienced doubt when it came to like a transition was actually like before like I had even applied to a position. Even in just thinking about like I'm here right now and I'm so focused on doing a good job for the people, the school that are around me, that like, what does it mean to start thinking about potentially applying to another school? Or what does it mean to say something like, does that mean that you're not enjoying what you're doing? Does that mean that you're unhappy? Um, Fortunately, after I guess some thought, for me, it was more just like, no, I know I'm doing a good job, for me right now. And it's just like, um, the doubt was not from, uh, feeling like, I guess, coming from a place of being scared. It was more like, what is the next opportunity? And then that transitions into the second part, which was, when you get to a new institution, it's like, or a new place, or what are some of the challenges that you encounter? Um, and really, I think for me, it's just having to be open-minded, because sometimes the whole objective changes. Like when I went from assistant coach at Ashland, it was just competition, and that's kind of what I defined success as, was recruiting and competition. And then going to San Antonio, it was like, we don't care about recruiting at all. Um, it's what can you do on a campus rec side for your students there and their experience and serving, underrepresented populations there. And then going to Wichita, again, it was, okay, we're not campus rec. Now it's how do you integrate with academic programs? And then now at Syracuse, kind of back to competition. Um, but fortunately, I guess I learned that pretty early and got my mind just ready for that. But um, yeah, it's just you really have to check yourself, because even going to Syracuse, it was like, okay, I've been at 3 different schools now. I'm pretty sure I know what I'm doing. And you get to Syracuse, and it's like, nope. There's a whole nother dimension added to it. So yeah, just constantly just kind of forcing yourself to. It's like it's okay to not fully understand how things work, but be open minded and willing to adapt, I guess.
Yeah, I'm just gonna hop in and say that like it was the same for me as it was for Travis, of like, why am I thinking about leaving? And then really having that introspective conversation of like, if I'm not happy here, why am I not happy? And for me, I realized like I was very stagnant, and I felt like I could do better essentially, but it wasn't a slight against, me as a person. It was okay, it's time for me to move on. And I remember I was telling some people about this job that I was interviewing for that I recently started, that I was super excited about. And I just, when I was excited about it, I realized like if I get this job, like this is going to be great for me because I'm going to have agency. I'm going to go through what I realize now is an aggressive period of growth, which for me is how I like to do things. I like to go to a new job and learn a lot. And then, my core skill is being a project manager, but still just picking up new things. And what I said when I was leaving my old company of what my new job would be is was actually very incorrect now that I look at it, because now I actually know what I'm supposed to be talking about. Um, but yeah, it's just like it's okay to not know stuff, because when they hire you, they understand that. And I remember after one of my interviews, I like had this moment where I started crying because I was like, it was a good cry, by the way, clarification, because the interviewers were like, we think you have a high ceiling for potential. And there's, another candidate who is traditionally from this industry, et cetera, et cetera. But we think that your experience is great. And they gave me commendations for esports at UCF for all of my work, which I felt like was a non-traditional experience that most people would pass over. So it was very validating. And I'm glad that I initiated that process, because if I was still at my old job, I'd be super bored. I would not be growing and I would not be compensated better. So yeah, I think that everyone should consider that. And I always tell students, like, your loyalty is to yourself and your career first. And you don't have to stay at that job if you're not happy. That's the fact and the reality. And no one is, if anyone's mad at you for leaving, then they just don't understand that reality and how you're addressing it. So yeah.
On the topic of crying, when I was in my senior year of high school, I decided I was going to go to a tech school and get my architectural drafting certificate. Because from like sixth grade until then, I wanted to be an architect. I was like, gonna go to college. I'm gonna become an architect. And I get into the class the first day, and there's a kid who sits directly behind me, and he's going crazy in AutoCAD. And I'm like, I don't even know how to draw a line. And I go home and call my sister crying while she's at college. And I'm like, I cannot do this. Like, I came in here expecting to know absolutely nothing and for this to be like an introductory type of thing like you would expect when you start either a new role or a new job. And I'm like, I don't know if I can do this. And my sister's like, just be better than them. Like, just be yourself and do better than them. And while he's one of my best friends, I did finish higher in the class than him. So I will say that. But yeah, it's just like, and clearly I'm not doing architecture also, by the way. I realized halfway through I did not enjoy it and decided to step away and figure out what was next. But it's just like, focus on yourself, focus on your skills and what you can do, and apply it to what you have in front of you and do the best that you could do.
That's awesome. I love that. It is like focus on you. You can't go wrong. We talked a little bit about this already, but I'm still going to say this part because I really like the way that I wrote it. So I don't want it to leave the show. So we talked a lot about like setbacks and what that means. So like we've talked in various ways, like your opportunity moving forward, and then when it's a setback, but like we talked about at the beginning of like that shake to your core. But I like to think of setbacks as set ups for something else. See, that was good, right? That's why I needed to stay in. That's why I couldn't like just throw this extra one. So even though we've touched on it a little bit, just like if anybody else has any thoughts, it outside of the being laid off and it ended up being a good thing. But does anybody else have examples or stories or thoughts on how maybe a setback in your career has set you up for something even better?
Oh, yeah. Not going to school for architecture allowed me to become a barista, which led me to finding the Overwatch League, even though I grew up as a gamer. And then I went and attended the inaugural finals, and that led me basically to where I am today. It was just, having that setback of, oh crap, I don't know what I'm going to do for the rest of my life at 17, 18, really set me up to be like, okay, well, you're 17, you can figure out what's next. And here I am at 24 and finally say I found it. And, I have plenty of time to keep finding it if I decide one day it's not what I want to do.
This is like crazy because I also like dropped my major and I didn't know what I was gonna do, and I'm also 24 and I ended up in esports. Just saying, like, it's insane, but yeah, I mean, like,
Yeah.
at the time you were so lost and you're like, what am I gonna do with my life? And but it works out. Like, I had no idea I would be where I am right now, but I'm happy with my life, and it's okay that bad things happen because you just keep moving and you pivot, you take it, and you make it into something better.
Mine's a little more grim, uh, but it's okay. I was let go from my position because there's a really long story, but the short story is I was let go because I was too sick while I was pregnant and I couldn't come back to work, and they wouldn't let me come back to work. So it doesn't matter. So because of that, I started going to grad school. And because of that, I got into esports. And so at the time, I was 31. So I didn't find what I wanted to do until after I was 30. So much later in life, I didn't realize what I wanted to do. I spent 10 years just kind of fumbling through jobs in life and not really caring or wanting to do anything. And it wasn't until I started going back to grad school that I really figured out what I actually wanted to do. And so it set me up for a more stable and I feel like I've had a successful career so far, and I'm proud of what I've accomplished. So although it started off not what I wanted to, I'm glad where I am.
I want to read what JJ said in the chat because I was trying to think of the analogy like, oh, there's a storm and then there's a rainbow and I can't think of it, so I butcher stuff. So JJ said it better. JJ's the GOAT for everyone that needs to know, and if you don't know, you really need to understand that he is, because it's a great day in esports. A bend in the road isn't the end of the road unless you fail to make the turn. And I love that. Thank you, JJ.
Also, Brooks just added something that I think is important and taps into what Jackie was saying too, of average age of entrepreneurs in the United States is 42. and the average age of successful startup founders is between 35 and 45. So I'm in that window. Just gonna say that for another 6 months.
Got time. We got time.
Get ready for
You
my
got
startup.
it. You're still there.
We've got time.
But it's a good. I'm glad you read JJ's point out loud because it's true and it's a good way of putting it. And JJ has a tendency to like talk in like those quote books, where there's like one quote per page. Like everything he says is like, yep, rip it out, hang it on the wall, just exactly as is. It's perfect like that. But I think that's really good too. I think we're closing in on the hour, which is crazy because this has been an awesome conversation. But before we move on, want to give everybody kind of like a round the horn. Anything else you want to cover, chat about, mention, plug?
Shout out
Give
where
us
we
a
can find
JJ
you.
Yeah, tell us where we can find you. Give us a JJ like one-liner that'll just set us on the right path. Whatever you need to do.
My favorite one. I gave a whole presentation on this, but apply your passion. Passion without application doesn't take you anywhere. So, you really want to take the time, find your passion, and then put it into practice. And I think it's really important, and it'll set you far. And like to connect with me on LinkedIn, more than happy to continue conversations there. So feel free to search me up, and can't miss me with my spelling of my first name. I should be the first one to pop up with Lindsay.
That's funny. That's what I always say too. Everyone's like, "Where do I find you?" I go, I'm the only one of me. Just look me on anything. That's it. It's not a name." So thank you, Lindsay. Travis, give us a send off. Come on,
There
you
you
got
go, Sari. Pick people. That's what I was about to do.
A wise philosopher once said, "It's a great day to esports."
Who's
No,
that
but
philosopher?
you lost the time,
Okay, yeah.
The one thing I would just put out there is, in the context of transitions, you're thinking about things, or just where you're at right now, reach out to other people in the industry. I've been very fortunate. I've talked to some younger directors, through NACE mentorship, AJ, but also just directors who have been in the area who have reached out, and we've had some really, really good conversations just about things that they're worried about, if they're going in the right direction. So I'm totally for talking to people, but I'm sure there's other people in your, closer to your area. So don't be afraid. There's always been people who have gone through what you've been through, or going through what you're going through. Don't feel like you're isolated.
I like that.
I guess I can say something. I would just say, as far as like going back to like setbacks and things, something at least that my mom always told me is that always always take rejection as good as you take like getting a new job and things of that sort. And that just pretty much she means like I'm saying it horribly. She says it a lot better than that, but she basically told me to like be positive and be kind and be grateful for the experience. And if you aren't grateful for the experience, at least pretend like you are. Because at the end of the day, my mom, she would always tell me, like, you never know where people are going to end up. You never know where people will end up, where jobs they'll transition to. You never know where people go in life. And you always want to build barriers instead of bridges. So I would just say, like, if you are facing a layoff or anything like that, just be as positive as you can be. I know that it's hard. I know for a 22-year-old with no kids or family or anything, it's easy for me to be like, just be positive. But, I know that at least for me, I definitely wouldn't have the job that I have now, and I wouldn't have such great relationships that I do if every time I faced rejection or anything, I just got really pissy. I try to stay positive as much as I can. So yeah, that'll be my sending off message.
I like it. And listen, I'm literally double your age, and I do have a kid, and I still like staying positive. So I don't think it has to stop, no matter what happens. Might as well laugh about it. All right. Well, I don't want to keep everybody for too much longer. So, Jackie, you want to tell us what's next?
Eh,
I I I have
Oh,
I have one
Annabelle.
thing to say. I'll make it very quick.
Don't
Uh,
worry about it. Take your time.
I'm a project manager, so my job is literally to tell people how to get to where they want to get and whether where they want to get is impossible. So what I will say is it's okay to change your plans, your destination, your goals, whatever it is, because seventh grade me thought that I was going to be 3D printing hearts, and clearly that's not happening. So it's okay to admit that, wherever you wanted to go might not actually be where you end up. I thought that I would not make it if I didn't work in esports. I thought I would be sad. I thought I would hate it. But actually I'm doing pretty well and I think I'm really happy with where I am and I get to do, cool stuff and projects. Like I get to work with Lindsay, which is great. Um, but I will just say that like it's okay to prioritize new things. You don't have to do the same thing all the time. And all you have to do is just approach it with positive mindset and an actionable mindset. So yeah. And you can find me on Twitter and LinkedIn. I'll put the links in chat. We're good.
Yeah.
okay. We have our schedule coming up. I think we got like a month break. And our next one is going to be May 15th. So we have just a short break. I think we all are a little bit appreciative of it, but our next show is on May 15th. We're going to do a health and wellness check-in. And our Q2 topics are a little bit different. I don't know, AJ, if everyone just has a quick second, do you want to explain them just a little bit, or should we just leave it for a surprise?
I mean, we could check through if we think that would be fun and exciting thing to do. For Q2, we wanted to switch things up a little bit. We have been growing our community. We're like we're like a year plus some months at this point in time, and for Q2 we wanted to focus on adding more folks just into our conversations. So a lot of our format lately has been like the four of the head baristas, and then we have like one coffee house chat per quarter. But we're gonna try to mix things up a little bit in Q2 and have like each stream almost be like a mini coffee house chat. So moving forward for Q2, what we'll have is like maybe one or two head baristas, and then accompanying the head baristas, we'll have like two or three coffee beans and folks from our community to chat through a couple of different topics. So if any interested parties in the chat see a topic that they're very jazzed about, would like to take part, let us know. We've got some folks in mind. We'll probably start reaching out either this week or next week for some of these. But if there's anything that just screams at you, let us know. We're happy to kind of bring on some new folks and new faces to talk about some of these cool topics.
Awesome.
So we want to thank all four of you for coming on the show and sharing. I know it's probably not always easy to be this candid on the internet and have people watching you. I probably overshared about my former job too, but you guys are awesome, so we appreciate that. And I want to share one quote in the immortal words of the Doors: "The time to hesitate is through." That's my if you ever know the movie, Sari might be the only one who knows what movie that's from. The greatest movie of all time, Empire Records. So did that just age me, Sari?
No, it's a classic.
It's great. Yeah. If everyone wants to talk, yes, you can reach out on LinkedIn with Lindsay, and I'm sure Micaiah there's a few Travises. I'm sorry, Travis Yang. But you can reach out in the Discord. All these lovely people are very accessible, and we can continue the conversation. I know that we didn't really talk on the negative sides of job hopping, but there are a few, right? So please join the Discord. And ladies and gentlemen and pals, are we all out of coffee? Like, I'm not sure.
I think we're all out of coffee.
Looks like it.
Travis might still have coffee though.
Mhm.
Oh, okay. Thanks, guys. Join
Bye,
the
bye.
Discord. Follow us on
Thank you.
socials.
Thanks, everyone. I suppose that's me, right? Yeah.